All right, so we're diving into something a little different today, something a lot of us are probably searching for, at least a little bit,
Oh, yeah.
a little more happiness in our lives. Maybe you've heard of those 30-day challenges. They're all over the place.
Right.
And you've wondered, like, do those things actually work?
Yeah.
So today we're going to take a deep dive into one specifically
Okay.
from the blog Tickled Think, and it's their 30-day happiness challenge.
Interesting.
We got all the source material right here.
Great.
And we're going to see what the science says. We're going to pull out the most intriguing tasks
Okay.
and kind of help you figure out if this is something that you might want to try out.
Right.
If this could be a path to a happier you. So what's interesting about this one is it's not just like, surface level happiness fixes.
Right.
It seems to be a little bit more about this idea that happiness is a skill
Mm-hmm.
you can cultivate with effort,
Yes.
with habit building.
That's exactly right.
Right.
I mean, that actually resonates with the core principles of positive psychology,
Oh, okay.
which,
I've heard of that.
yeah, it's a whole field of study that really focuses on what makes people thrive, not just survive.
I like that.
So, a lot of psychology historically has been about what's wrong with people
Right.
and let's try to fix what's wrong.
Yeah.
But positive psychology says, well, wait a minute.
Yeah.
What about all the good stuff?
What about what's right?
Yeah. How do we get more of that?
Yeah, I like that. So no magic wands here, but maybe a mental toolkit instead.
I think that's a great way to put it.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Now let's get into some of these daily tasks because
Right.
they're very specific in this challenge.
Right.
Some seem pretty straightforward, like, okay, I can do that. But others, one in particular that I was like, whoa, how?
Yeah.
Don't complain for a whole day challenge.
Ooh.
Is that even possible?
Well, it's definitely a challenge, but the science behind it is pretty compelling.
Yeah.
There's a study by Dr. Robin Kowalski at Clemson University, and she actually found that complaining increases activity in the amygdala.
That's the fear center.
Yes,
Yeah.
the part of your brain that is associated with stress and fear.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a negativity feedback loop.
Oh, interesting.
The more you complain,
Yeah.
the more your brain gets wired for it.
Wow.
So even trying this for one day
Mm-hmm.
could really help you break that pattern.
Wow, I hadn't thought about it like that. So it's not just about like being more pleasant to be around. It's
Right.
actually like rewiring your brain to
Exactly.
work better.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm starting to get this. Another one that jumps out, and this one feels a little intense.
Oh, yeah.
It's the list 10 things you love about yourself. Challenge. I'm not sure.
That's a good one. It might
Yeah.
feel a bit uncomfortable at first.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
But leaning into that vulnerability, I think, is key.
Hmm.
This is about cultivating self-compassion,
Okay.
which studies have shown is a major, major factor in overall happiness. There's this researcher, Dr. Kristen Neff, who's actually, she's like the leading researcher in this area of self-compassion.
Wow.
And she found that people who practice self-compassion
Yeah.
tend to have greater emotional resilience,
Mhm.
lower levels of anxiety and depression,
Really?
and even improved physical health.
Wow.
So it's really about treating yourself with the same kindness you'd offer a good friend.
Oh, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
So instead of focusing on all of our shortcomings all the time,
Right.
we're actively acknowledging our strengths and accepting imperfections.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, this next one is a bit more outward focused.
Okay.
The do something kind for a stranger challenge.
Oh, I like that one.
Is there any real evidence that boosts happiness? Like doing
Yeah.
something kind for a random person?
Absolutely.
Mm.
There's actually a growing body of research on the link between what we call altruism and well-being.
Okay.
One study that was published in the Journal of Happiness Studies, they found that participants who performed acts of kindness for others experienced significant increases in their own levels of happiness.
Really?
And this lasted even weeks later.
Hmm.
So it turns out helping others triggers the release of endorphins.
Oh, those feel-good chemicals.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that can have a lasting impact.
So you're telling me I should add surprise someone with coffee to my to-do list if I want to boost my mood?
There you go. Why not? It's a simple act. It
Well,
could really make a difference.
I'm starting to see how all these seemingly small actions
Yes.
can add up to something bigger.
Right. They build on each other.
So we've touched on mindfulness.
Mm-hmm.
We've touched on self-compassion. Now we're talking about altruism. Is there a common thread running through all of these challenges?
If we look at the challenge as a whole,
Yeah.
it's designed to address various dimensions of well-being.
Okay.
So we've got tasks focused on mindfulness,
Like what? What's an example?
Mindful eating
Yep.
or meditation things that help you stay present
Yeah.
and reduce stress.
Yeah.
Then there are gratitude exercises.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about those.
Yeah. And research has shown that these can increase positive emotions
Okay.
and even strengthen relationships.
Interesting.
There were even challenges encouraging physical activity, social connection, and personal growth,
Wow.
all of which contribute to a more holistic sense of well-being.
It's like they created a recipe
Yes.
for happiness.
It's a great analogy.
They've carefully selected these ingredients
Wow.
that have been scientifically proven to work.
And it's not just about the individual ingredients.
What do you mean?
Well, they also emphasize the importance of celebrating small wins
Oh, yeah.
and practicing self-compassion throughout the challenge.
Why is that so crucial? Why is that so important?
Because it's all about maintaining motivation and building sustainable habits.
Right, because if you slip up one day,
Exactly.
you might just want to give up.
Right. It's easy to get discouraged,
Yeah.
but by celebrating even the smallest victories,
Mm-hmm.
you reinforce positive behavior.
Mm.
And self-compassion helps you navigate those inevitable bumps in the road.
We all have them.
We all do.
Without beating yourself up.
Exactly. Remember, this is a journey, not a race.
So it's like having your own personal cheering section,
I love that.
encouraging you every step of the way.
Yeah.
I like that. But let's be realistic.
Okay.
Can a 30-day challenge truly change everything?
That's a great question. It's important to approach this with a healthy dose of realism.
Yeah.
I mean, this challenge offers a structured framework and some really valuable tools,
Yeah.
but it's not a magic solution.
Okay.
Everyone's journey to happiness is unique,
Right.
and what works for one person may not work for another.
Right.
Think of this as a starting point, a chance to experiment
Right.
and discover what truly resonates with you.
Okay, so it's not a guarantee,
Right.
but a personalized exploration.
Exactly.
I can get behind that. But how can someone make sure they're getting the most out of this challenge? How do they personalize it? How do they make it their own?
That's where self-awareness comes in.
Okay.
As you go through the challenge,
Mm-hmm.
pay close attention to how you feel,
Okay.
both physically and emotionally.
Yeah.
What tasks energize you?
Yeah.
What drains you?
Okay.
The challenge is a framework,
Yeah.
but you have the power to adapt it
Mm-hmm.
to fit your own needs and preferences.
So it's not like, you must do this.
No.
It's like, try it out.
Like
See how it feels.
yeah. Maybe you'll discover you love journaling,
Yeah.
but meditation isn't your thing.
Yeah.
That's perfectly fine.
Right.
The key is to listen to yourself
Mm-hmm.
and make adjustments as you go.
So it's about paying attention to your own, like, internal compass
Yes.
and making choices that align with what truly makes you feel good.
I think that's a great way to put it.
That's really empowering.
It is.
And before we move on,
Yeah.
I want to touch on something you mentioned earlier about positive psychology.
Yes, it's fascinating. It really challenges the traditional model of focusing solely on what's wrong with people. It shifts the lens to explore strengths, resilience, and the factors that contribute to a flourishing life. And it really aligns with the spirit of this challenge because it's about proactively building happiness, not just fixing what's broken.
So instead of waiting for happiness to like magically appear,
Right.
you're actively creating the conditions
Precisely.
for it to thrive.
Yep.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense. But let's get real for a second.
Okay.
What about those days when life throws you a curveball?
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're stressed, you're exhausted, you're just not feeling it.
Right. We all have those days.
Does this challenge acknowledge those inevitable
No, absolutely.
dips in the road?
It absolutely does. In fact, the article emphasizes the importance of self-compassion, especially on those tough days. It recognizes that you won't be perfectly happy or motivated every single day, and that's okay.
Right.
The key is to treat yourself with kindness and understanding when you falter, just as you would a close friend.
So it's about giving yourself permission to be human.
Exactly.
To have those off days
Right.
without throwing in the towel completely.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can definitely relate to that. Now, I'm curious, does the challenge offer any strategies for dealing with those inevitable moments of self-doubt or discouragement?
You bring up a really important point, and, the challenge encourages you to focus on celebrating small wins, even when you're feeling down.
Oh, interesting.
It's about shifting your attention to the positive, no matter how small it may seem.
Okay.
So, did you manage to get out of bed and make a healthy breakfast?
Yeah.
That's a win.
Hmm.
Did you resist the urge to complain about the traffic? Another win.
Okay.
By acknowledging these small victories, you're training your brain to focus on the good stuff,
Right.
which can help boost your mood and keep you moving forward.
So it's almost like a mental trick?
It is. It is.
Redirecting your attention away from the negative towards the positive.
Exactly.
Okay, I like that. It reminds me of that quote. I think it was William James, one of the founders of psychology, who said, "The greatest discovery of my generation is that a human being can alter his life by altering his attitudes."
That's a great quote.
And it seems like this challenge is all about putting that idea into practice.
Exactly. And it's not just about shifting your mindset.
What else?
It's about taking concrete actions
Okay.
to create positive change. That's what makes this challenge so powerful.
Yeah.
It combines the mental and the physical, the internal and the external, to help you cultivate a more holistic sense of well-being.
It's like a multi-pronged
Yes.
approach to happiness,
Yeah.
attacking it from all angles.
I love it.
Now, I know you mentioned earlier that everyone's journey to happiness is unique, but are there any universal truths, any core principles that apply to everyone regardless of their individual circumstances?
That's a really interesting question, and I do think there are some fundamental truths that underpin happiness. For example, research consistently shows that strong social connections are essential for well-being. So whether it's close friendships, family relationships, or even a sense of community, that feeling of being connected to others is a powerful predictor of happiness.
It makes sense. We're social creatures by nature, and those connections provide us with support, belonging, sense
Yes.
of purpose.
Yes. And, I imagine that ties in with the challenge's emphasis on acts of kindness.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
Because helping others is a great way to strengthen those social bonds.
Absolutely. When you perform acts of kindness, you're not only making someone else feel good, but you're also strengthening your own sense of connection and
Right.
belonging.
It's a win-win situation.
I like that.
And speaking of win-win situations, another universal truth about happiness is that it's often found in the pursuit of something larger than ourselves.
Oh, interesting.
Whether it's a passion project, a meaningful career,
Mhm.
or simply a commitment to making a positive impact on the world,
Mm.
having a sense of purpose is incredibly fulfilling.
So it's not just about chasing pleasure or avoiding pain. It's about aligning your actions with your values
Exactly.
and working towards something that gives your life meaning.
Yes, that's beautifully said.
Now, you've mentioned a lot of research throughout this deep dive,
There's a lot out there.
and I know our listeners are always eager to learn more.
Of course.
Do you have any recommendations for books or resources that delve deeper into the science of happiness?
Absolutely. There are some fantastic books out there that explore this topic in depth. One that I highly recommend is The How of Happiness by Sonja Lyubomirsky. It's a comprehensive guide to the science of happiness,
Okay.
packed with practical strategies and exercises that are based on solid research. Another great one is Flourish by Martin Seligman, one of the pioneers of positive psychology. It's a fascinating exploration of what truly allows people to thrive and live fulfilling lives.
Those sound like great resources. Now, before we move on to the final part of our deep dive,
Okay.
I want to circle back to the idea of personalizing this challenge.
Mm.
What advice would you give to someone who's feeling overwhelmed by all the different tasks and unsure where to start?
That's a great question. And it's completely understandable to feel overwhelmed, especially when you're first starting out.
Yeah?
My advice would be to start small
Mm-hmm.
and focus on incorporating 1 or 2 new habits at a time.
Mm-hmm.
Don't try to do everything at once.
Right.
Instead, choose a couple of tasks that resonate with you and commit to doing them consistently for a week or 2.
Okay.
Once those habits feel more ingrained, you can gradually add in more.
So it's about building momentum
Yes.
slowly but surely,
Exactly.
rather than trying to change everything overnight.
Right. That's usually a recipe for disaster.
And I imagine it's also important to be patient with yourself throughout the process, right?
Absolutely. Change takes time, and it's rarely linear. There will be days when you nail it and days when you fall short. The key is to approach the whole process with a spirit of self-compassion and not get discouraged by setbacks. Remember, you're on a journey, and every step, even the missteps, is part of the learning process.
I love that perspective. It's a reminder that growth isn't always comfortable, but it's always worth it.
So true.
And speaking of growth,
Yeah.
I'm curious to hear your thoughts on how someone can use this 30-day challenge as a springboard for lasting change.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to feel a little happier for a month, but how do we take those positive shifts and weave them into the fabric of our everyday lives?
Yeah, I mean, that's where the real magic happens, and it goes back to that self-awareness we talked about.
Sure.
This challenge isn't just a temporary fix. It's an opportunity to experiment,
Mm-hmm.
gather data on yourself,
Oh, interesting.
and figure out what truly moves the needle on your personal happiness meter.
So it's like a happiness laboratory
Yes,
where you're testing out different ingredients and seeing what creates the most potent concoction for you.
exactly. And the beauty of it is you're in complete control.
Yeah.
You get to decide which experiments to run, which variables to tweak, and which results to celebrate. So maybe you discover that spending time in nature just like supercharges your mood,
Yeah.
or that certain types of social interactions leave you feeling drained.
Totally.
The key is to pay close attention to those subtle cues and use them to inform your choices going forward.
So it's about tuning in to your own inner wisdom and
Yeah.
becoming a bit of a happiness detective,
I love that.
uncovering those hidden clues that lead to a more fulfilling life. But how do you know when you've struck gold? How do you distinguish between those fleeting moments of joy and those deeper, more sustainable shifts in well-being?
That's where the concept of flow comes in. It's a term coined by psychologist Misali Csikszentmihalyi.
Okay.
And flow is that state of complete absorption in an activity where you lose track of time and you feel a sense of effortless joy and fulfillment.
Yeah.
It's when you're fully engaged, challenged, and using your skills to their fullest potential.
It's like that feeling of being in the zone
Yeah.
where everything just clicks. And I imagine the challenge can help people identify those activities that spark that flow state for them.
Precisely. As you go through the different tasks, pay attention to the ones that leave you feeling energized, inspired, and fully alive. Those are the activities that are most likely to lead to lasting happiness because they tap into your core values, passions, and strengths.
So it's about moving beyond those superficial pleasures and discovering those deeper sources of joy that are uniquely aligned with who you are.
Yes.
And once you've identified those activities, how do you make sure they become a regular part of your life?
That's where the power of habit formation comes in. Research has shown that it takes an average of 66 days to form a new habit.
Wow.
So once you've completed the 30-day challenge, don't stop there. Choose one or two of the activities that resonated most with you and commit to integrating them into your daily or weekly routine.
So it's about building on that initial momentum and making those positive changes stick.
Exactly.
And I imagine that requires a bit of planning and intentionality, right?
Absolutely. Just like you'd schedule a doctor's appointment or a work meeting, it's important to schedule time for those activities that nourish your well-being. Whether it's blocking out 30 minutes for a morning walk or setting aside an hour for a creative pursuit, make it a non-negotiable part of your schedule.
So it's about treating those happiness-boosting activities with the same level of importance as any other commitment. Now, before we wrap up this deep dive completely, I want to circle back to the original question. Can a 30-day challenge really be a catalyst for lasting happiness?
I believe it absolutely can be.
Okay.
But it's important to remember that happiness isn't a destination. It's a journey, a lifelong pursuit. This challenge provides a roadmap, a set of tools, and a burst of motivation to get you started. But the real transformation happens when you take those tools and use them to craft a life that is authentically joyful and fulfilling,
Yeah.
a life that reflects your unique values, passions, and purpose.
So it's not about following a prescribed formula. It's about using this challenge as a springboard for self-discovery and creating a life that feels deeply aligned with who you are.
Beautifully said.
Well, I think that's a great place to leave it.
Yeah.
That's a great message to leave our listener with. As you embark on your own happiness journey, remember that you have the power to choose joy, cultivate resilience, and design a life that lights you up from the inside out.
Absolutely.
So keep experimenting, keep exploring, and most importantly, keep believing in your own capacity for happiness.